Hello, good afternoon everyone. I hope you're all doing well. And welcome to Horizontal Talks. And Horizontal Talks is a platform for engaging all the conversations on building an inclusive and diverse workplace. I'm Divya Gunashekar, your moderator for today's session. And I'm thrilled to guide you through our exploration of embracing diversity, advancing equity, and building an inclusive future. Before we jump into our discussion, let's take a moment to meet our esteemed panelists. We are pleasure having Srijit, our Vice President APAC.
Thank you.
And we have Vijay Nair, our Country Director for India.
Thank you.
We have Michelle, our Country Director for Malaysia. And we have Robert, our Country Director for Australia. Welcome all of you.
Thank you.
Each of our panelists holds a key leadership role in APAC region. And we are in for a treat with insights they'll be sharing. So before we jump into the session, we would like to have a brief understanding of each of your roles that you play. So Srijit, can you please have a brief overview of your roles and responsibilities with specific to APAC region?
All right. Yeah, thanks for the introduction, Divya. So as the Regional Vice President for APAC, I manage the talent organization. Privileged to be in this industry for the last 20 plus years, building talents across these markets. One of the things that we need to keep in mind about Asia Pac is that sometimes we feel that it's just one region, but it's so diverse among different countries. Now, if we look at it today from a horizontal standpoint, we are in India, Malaysia, Australia, and then we are also impacting the larger region of talent pool, of hiring talent from different countries to any of these countries for our customers. So it's an important topic today to discuss about diversity, equity, and inclusion because it can be so different in different countries that we operate. So that's about me. I manage the operations in the APAC region and very closely work with the leaders that we have here today.
Thank you so much, Srijit. And we have Vijay, our Country Director for India. Vijay, what are your major roles and responsibilities that you carry for India?
Thank you, Divya, and good afternoon to everyone. As the country director for India, my role revolves around spearheading the strategic vision for India. Now, I oversee the talent business for India, looking at aligning, fostering partnerships with customers, and aligning our services towards evolving needs for Indian market, focused towards growing our organization in India region. That's a brief about what I do in short.
Great. Thank you so much, Vijay. Thank you. So we have Michelle from Malaysia. Welcome to India again, Michelle. So can you give us an insight about your roles and responsibilities with respect to Country Director for Malaysia region?
Sure. It won't be so much different from Vijay. Country directors are there to focus on growth. So when I joined Horizontal Talent, I'm the fourth employee. So my focus has been overall growth, looking into team synergy, so hiring the right people, operational excellence, fulfilling demands, adding value to clients. Overall, just looking into continuous improvements and of course profitability, right? Yes.
Great, thank you. Thank you so much, Michelle. And moving on to Robert.
Thank you, Divya. My name is Robert Beckley. I'm the Country Director for Horizontal Talent in Australia. Horizontal Talent have just entered the Australian market and we're launching all of our services there, so direct hire, staff augmentation and statement of work. And my responsibility is for the strategic and operational responsibility for the growth in that region.
Great, thank you. Thank you so much, Robert. And before we move on to the in-detail session, let's just quickly have an agenda overview. So today we are going to talk about a holistic view of DEI, diversity, equity and inclusion. So from personal experience to strategies for a more inclusive workplace. So we have a packed session ahead. I have a couple of questions for you. So let's get into the questions. Okay. So we'll start off with Srijit. So I have a question for you related to DEI. So what are the key focus areas for DEI that organizations in APAC should prioritize?
That's a great question, Divya. If you look at globally from a DEI perspective, every country is different. If you look at in the US, we see gender as one area, and then you have people of color, and then you have the veterans and things. But if you come to APAC, you have different countries in different levels of evolution. But my point is about organizations as we are and the larger organizations looking at D&I as more from a social responsibility standpoint. I would like to look at it more from a business imperative side. Why I'm saying this is, there's a tangible benefit for organization to actually advance their journey towards more diversity, equity, and inclusion, because there is a benefit of doing that from a business standpoint.
Yes.
There was a recent study by McKinsey surveying companies which are diverse and non-diverse. They started with the gender diversity first, and they saw 23% higher productivity for companies who are diverse from a gender standpoint.
Yeah.
And then they did another study about ethnic diversity. They saw 33%.
Wow.
Ethnic diverse companies are more profitable and able to withstand pressure from the market. So there's already evidence that it's kind of helps companies to be more resilient, increases cultural adaptation, increase retention levels, and it's overall beneficial for the company. So as leaders in the organization, we should look at it more from a business imperative angle and try to build diverse companies and cultures across the markets that we serve. And we want to make sure that we do it according to the market that we are in, and when we do that, those organizations thrive. That's what my take on this. Yeah.
Great insights. Thank you so much, Srijit.
Well,
So we have a question for Robert. How have the DEI initiatives evolved over the period, you think?
I think the whole diversity landscape has changed significantly over recent years. You don't need to go too far back into the distant past, and diversity really was the focus of HR. It was a subset of HR, and the focus really was quite narrow on compliance and a look at subconscious bias, whereas now diversity is a priority for boards. It's a business imperative. Most large corporations have diversity and equity officers within the business. Diversity and inclusion in its own right is a multi-billion-dollar business, and within organisations, diversity initiatives are comprehensive and they're fully integrated throughout the business as well. So it's not just looking at hiring, it's looking at the whole corporate experience. Beyond that, I think the scope has widened. So beyond the traditional areas of demographic diversity to a focus and initiatives on areas like neurodiversity, particularly in the tech space. And finally, the language used to describe the industry, and indeed the goals of industry, have morphed and changed. So they've gone from talking about diversity and inclusion to talking more about equity and belonging. So it's a changing and exciting space.
So you've seen the evolution
Yeah.
happening with DEI initiatives. Thank you so much, Robert. Now we have a question for Michelle, right? How have significant encounters with diversity throughout your professional career shaped your approach to leadership?
I have two experiences to share. So one is a personal one. So I've studied and lived in Malaysia for my first 23 years and 1 year in Australia. So in that university life, I have made friends with many people from different countries, not just Australia. So they can be as far as Africa in Ethiopia. It can be from Japan, as far as Russia, Poland as well. So from that experience, I gained a lot of understanding and move away from the stereotypes that we have created from medias and all that about these countries. And then professionally, I worked with a company that has 28 nationalities working under one roof. And when you see those diversities, you will see the different from the way problems are solved creatively, learning from each other, and then you create awareness and then respect. So I think with that, that is something that I value a lot.
in myself, and it carries throughout with me through how I lead the team that I have and interacts with everyone that I work with today, celebrating diversity.
Great. Wow, it's really helped you shape your leadership. Great. Thank you so much for sharing this. And moving on to Vijay. So, do you believe that fostering DEI is integral to creating a high-performance organizational culture?
Absolutely, Divya. I completely echo that. Reason being, it's paramount to a high-performing organizational culture. And second, just to drawing from my personal experiences, I work closely with a diverse team who outperforms and who brings unique perspectives to the forefront, right, to the business, to see how do we solve a challenge, how do we bring in more growth to the organizations, a lot of priorities. We kind of brainstorm a lot and see how can we better prioritize services for our customers and so on. Now, adding to that, I would say that another key point is I've been able to retain talent and acquire new talent, and also helping me to become a company of choice for them to come and work. So that's my perspective on this.
Great, thank you, thank you. So high-performing organization culture views are great. So moving back to Robert again. Okay. So we have another question. So why has there been an increased focus on DEI initiatives recently that you're seeing? So you spoke about the evolution, and why do you think is it important?
I think it's a series of interconnected factors. One obvious one is the commercial driver. So organisations are seeing evidence that suggests that the more diverse the team is, the more inclusive the team is, the more it represents the markets in which they work, the more innovative they can be and ultimately more productive and resilient.
Right.
So there is a business driver. I think there's also a moral element to it, and you can see in recent years there's been a huge array of social justice movements throughout the world, and obviously the corporate world is not immune from that, and a lot of the goals overlap as well.
Right.
So I think they're two major factors that are driving it. And then finally, there is significant pressure. So boards will be pressured from investors, from shareholders, from employees, to be doing the right thing and to be seen to be doing the right thing. And if they don't get that right, they're exposed to risk and reputational damage, brand and reputational damage.
True, yeah. Great. We'll talk more in detail, and we have one more question for Michelle. So in your opinion, how can organizations be better to cultivate diverse talent and ensure equitable opportunities for all of them?
I think first it's be colorblind. So if you set up your definition of the rights for promotion, for reward, and any kind of assessment, do it without any background. Just look into skills, look into the real performance, look into numbers. So all these things are measurable. Right. So then you can keep everything equal, fair to everyone. So regardless of gender, colors, religions, or where they come from. So everything by metrics.
Yeah. That's a great output, a very great answer. Thank you so much, Michelle. So before we go in more details, okay, so we have one more question for Vijay. So can you recount an instance where fostering inclusivity and embracing diversity had a substantial positive impact on an organization?
Absolutely. Divya, I've personally, we've just promoted a person, a leader in our team who's who's been with us for the last 5 years, and that's the first leader that we have promoted as a market director in the last five years in a leadership role for APAC region, to be precise, and one such person, I would like to put a little bit thoughts there, saying that she started with zero, where there was when Horizontal India started off here in Bangalore, and today she has probably around 75% of the share for Horizontal in India, and she's grown it to that level. So definitely that's an example for people who can grow to the next level, and we believe in their leadership also.
It's an inspirational move that the leader had. Great. So before we go on discussion. So, which is going to be an open-ended question for all the 4 panelists over here. One final question I have again for Robert. So, are there any unique features of DEI in Australia specific?
Yeah, I think there are. On the whole, the pillars of diversity will be the same in many regions, albeit those countries might be at different stages of their journey. But what does change is the history of that country and the history of injustice within that country.
Right.
So in Australia, there's a particular focus on the reconciliation and employment of Indigenous Australians. So most of the large corporations will have what's called a Reconciliation Action Plan, and within that they will have stated plans around the hiring of Indigenous individuals. They might run cadetships or internships or any number of hiring programs targeted at that sector of the market. So I think that's one example where Australia would have something slightly different from other countries.
Great. Thank you so much. We have some questions, so we are having an open forum discussion for one particular question. So I'm going to check and ask you, as we approach the year 2024, okay, what specific initiatives or strategies you think organizations need to adapt in creating a high-performing, inclusive workforce and workplace?
Yeah, I think it has to start from the top. The leadership has to have a very clear objective of promoting diversity, and it should have a business imperative like we all talked about, and then the ability to follow through that journey is important as well, right? And then always connect the diversity journey that you have with the culture that you're building in the organization that you have. When you do that, that goes a long way in terms of shaping up that country's, that team's ability to innovate, to retain great talent, and also to kind of navigate through the complex market situation that we are seeing today.
Yeah, it's a very competitive market, and we need to kind of adopt to the change. So DEI is going to be a change that is going to bring a high-performing culture across the organization. So what do you think, Michelle, about the strategies and initiatives that we need to build for 2024? What we need to focus upon? What we need to prioritize upon?
For me, I think diversity is huge definition, right? So for Malaysia, I think few key things. Last quarter, I hired someone from the LGBT community. We celebrate it. We want to understand how she works in a day, right? How does she, operate? You know, so we had tough discussion. For instance, which washroom do you go into? You know, those kind of things. So with that. Embracing that kind of diversity, we are actually going into such sensitive topics, but it has to be something very open, very transparent. So to me, for my team, I want everyone to work very comfortably, transparent, and full of trust. So I think like what Sriji said, top down, and then we can make it work. So I think one thing at a time for me is LGBT this quarter. Perhaps next year, it is something a little bit different. I'm looking at perhaps impact community, impact sourcing. So previously we had refugees. I have worked with refugees from Syria. Absolutely talented people. So perhaps next year we can look into a bit something different to bring into the organization in Malaysia. Yeah.
So you want to have a focus area towards that. You want to prioritize on that.
Impact sourcing,
Great.
Anything that makes impact,
Great. Thank you so much. Any views and opinions from Robert and Vijay about any strategies and initiatives that we need to focus for 2024?
There's an area which really interests me, and that's around diversity of thought. Because one of the stated ambitions of having a diverse workforce is you have different backgrounds and different perspectives, and it will help foster innovation. But a lot of companies aren't actually very good at having diversity of thought, and they don't like having orthodoxy questions. So I think that's just an area which will be really interesting to see how that plays out, and what can be done to help foster that environment. Another area which is really interesting is we live in an increasingly polarised time.
Right.
Whether it's a big geopolitical issue or a social justice issue. And we live in a world where things are black and white and heroes and villains, and different sides aren't talking to each other. So if you have a large workforce
Right.
and you want that workforce to be inclusive, how do you balance those tensions? I think that's going to be very interesting.
True. Great. Looking forward to that. So, Vijay, your views and
Great.
opinions?
Just adding to what I completely agree with what Srijit, Michelle, and Robert just spoke about it, that it needs to come from the top to the thing.
Right.
In my view, I'm sure that organizations should have a practice or have a targeted diversity hiring plan
Right.
with a comprehensive training and also equitable policies, which Michelle just brought in some time back, saying
Right.
that an equal policy for everybody, for
Right.
an inclusive workplace to be in place. And definitely, in my parlance, if I have to look at it, when I look at other regions, I specifically go and look at diverse leaders.
Right.
Even if I have somebody leading there, I look at diverse leaders to join that team so that those teams can also see. And I also spoke about my personal experience, saying that I've seen the diverse teams outperform
Right.
and show results with
Right.
some unique perspectives that they bring to the business. That's my thought.
It's more in emerging market that we see that women increasingly lose out on the corporate ladder because of the marriage, childbirth, and movement and things
Yes.
like that. I personally lost a lot of great talents during my journey so far. So we make that effort to be more flexible in those workplaces so that they could come and contribute to the organization. And they are amazing talent, and we've experienced it throughout our journey. And I think this room is an example of how it's developed. The other part is people with differently abled skills. Like, for example, people are having some kind of disabilities,
Right.
but they could be really good at certain areas that
Yes.
we could utilize their skill sets on.
Right.
I think a lot of organizations don't create roles that suits those talent, and I think that's what, as leadership, that we need to do and look at and see how do I use that talent and get them into a company and create more inclusive workplace through that. And when you do that, I've seen that the culture of the organization gets richer and richer.
True, true. Yeah. Great. So great insights and a lot of takeaways we have from this discussion, talking about the inclusivity, DEI initiatives and everything. As we near the end of this session, so I would like to express my gratitude for all the 4 panelists that we had today. Thank you so much for sharing all the wisdom and experience that you had for our today's session, the topic about DEI. Okay. And thank you once again, Srijit, Michelle, and thank you, Robert, and thank you, Vijay.